And good morning, friends. Welcome to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben, and thank you for joining us. Our number today and every day on The Bright Side, 844-236-6010. 844-236-6010. If you have questions, comments, success stories you would like to share, if you want to contribute to the conversation, or if you have a health challenge you or a loved one needs help with, we're here for you. 844-236-6010 is our number on The Bright Side. If you want to purchase longevity products, go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can also call 866-735-2470 if you want to speak to a real-life human being, or you can click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. If you'd like to start a longevity business, if you want to be operational in the world of nutrition, if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to make some money in your spare time, or even as a full-time job, a lot of people are working longevity full-time and doing pretty well at it. The nutrition business is rocking as it should be. People are beginning to understand the power of nutrition and nutritional supplementation, and longevity is well situated. Longevity's been talking about nutritional supplementation and the importance of a good nutritional supplement program for decades, and it's now time. Most folks, if not at least many folks, are understanding that using a nutritional supplement program can be a very important part of good health. And even if you're not dealing with a health challenge, a nutritional supplement program is your best anti-aging insurance. If that sounds intriguing to you, and if you're an entrepreneur and you like the entrepreneur lifestyle, please take a look at the longevity business opportunity. Click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com, or call 866-735-2470 for more information. All right, our number today, 844-236-6010. We're going to talk to Dr. Shawn Baker at the bottom of the hour. His book is The Carnivore Diet. I've been following Dr. Baker's work for many years. I'm not sure I agree with. Actually, I have a lot of questions, and I've had many questions for him. I'm very excited to be able to speak to him. Thank you, Rob, for setting that up, by the way. We'll talk to Dr. Baker at the bottom of the hour, and then we'll get your calls. Next segment, 844-236-6010. So we left off our last Bright Side program talking about endotoxins, lipopolysaccharides, LPSs. These lipopolysaccharides, as the name implies, are fat sugar molecules, and they're components of bacteria, basically. And as our digestive tract starts to break down, as the intestine starts to break down, these LPSs can leak into the bloodstream. LPSs by themselves can induce intestinal permeability, and ultimately they can end up in the bloodstream. And this can lead to inflammation, it can lead to immune reactions, it can lead to autoimmunity, it can lead to heart problems. Coronary disease patients are known to have disruptions in their intestinal microbiomes as well as leaky gut. And oftentimes they are depleted in butyrate-producing bacteria and overall butyrate levels. Thus the link between butyric acid, i.e. butyrate, and cardiovascular health. And one of the reasons why consumption of red meat is associated with heart disease is because of this kind of dysbiosis feature in the intestine. I'm going to talk to Dr. Baker about this here at the bottom of the hour. One of the reasons why red meat, the consumption of red meat is associated with heart disease is because of messed up gut bacteria. When gut bacteria are not healthy, when we have the wrong bacteria, a substance called TMAO, which is kind of a nitrogen-like substance, trimethylamino oxidase, I believe is a technical name, but TMAO, we'll call it, is linked to inflammation and cardiovascular disease. And the TMAO, which is the byproduct of how certain nutrients in animal foods, meat and eggs and dairy, are processed. Eggs especially, by the way, are very high in choline, and choline is one of the precursors to this TMAO stuff. And this is why eating eggs, as well as eating meat, has been linked to heart disease. It's not the eggs per se, and it's not the meat per se. It's the way the eggs and the meat are processed, and it's more about the health of the intestine. This is where butyrate comes in. If you're worried about eggs and heart disease, if you're worried about meat and heart disease, you might want to make sure that your microbiome is working like it should. You might want to make sure you're supplementing with probiotics and eating fermented foods, and especially eating fermented veggies, which will get you the fiber. This is why I always talk about fermented veggies. Yeah, fermented foods like yogurt and kefir and miso and tempeh are beneficial, but fermented veggies will get you fiber too. Butyrate deficiency is linked to the buildup of this TMAO stuff. So next time somebody tells you you shouldn't eat eggs because it's bad for your heart, or you shouldn't eat meat because it's bad for your heart, you might want to suggest to them that it's very possible that it's not the eggs and the meat that are causing the cardiovascular problems, but the dysbiosis, messed up gut bacteria, dysbiosis, and the butyrate deficiencies. This is the big problem I have with so-called epidemiological studies like the China study. Big problems with the China study, T. Colin Campbell. Vegetarians often, and I'm not ripping on anybody in particular, vegetarians, vegans, carnivores. I just think sometimes a lot of people who are fundamentalist in their beliefs need to have their feet held to the fire and have questions asked. So T. Colin Campbell writes a book called The China Study, where he goes out and interviews, does research on Chinese people who eat a lot of eggs and meat, and he finds that they have heart disease. And he says, oh, eggs and meat cause heart disease. Or dairy. That's his big thing. Eggs, meat, and dairy cause heart disease. Why? Because people who eat eggs, meat, and dairy have heart disease. So, of course, it makes sense that eggs, meat, and dairy cause heart disease. No. Correlation is not causation. Just because something is correlated, that doesn't mean there's a causal relationship. What T. Colin Campbell needs to do is to start researching biochemistry and TMAO and choline metabolism and dysbiosis and butyrate, which, by the way, is only found in is largely found in animal foods like butter and dairy. So epidemiological results. And by the way, our world today is suffering from the stupidity of believing epidemiological numbers. That's why we're all locked in and we've shut down businesses and shut down the economy because of epidemiology. I know it's a big word, and I hope it's not intimidating because it's very important to understand. Epidemiology is the study of populations and what happens in populations. It has nothing to do with biochemistry. We are not epidemiological beings. We are biochemical beings. Epidemiology is about statistics. It's about large numbers and doing algorithms and computer modeling. And because of algorithms and computer modeling and statistics and epidemiology, we shut down the planet. That's why scientists who study biology think this is ridiculous. Epidemiologists are oftentimes on the news, on TV, and they're talking about what's going to happen, what the probabilities are. I've had a problem with the relationship between probability and health since I first studied it in pharmacy school. Drugging people because of probability, having people remove their organs because of probability, and now we have politicians shutting down the world, basically, because of probability and epidemiology. Anyway, TMAO, dysbiosis, butyrate, intestinal permeability, these are the real culprits behind not just heart disease, but all chronic long-term degenerative disease. And there is absolutely a place for animal foods in the human diet. We're omnivores. We're supposed to eat everything. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Lines open for you, 844-236-6010. We've got Dr. Sean Baker in the Carnivore Diet coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back right after this. We are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Dr. Sean Baker will be with us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk about the carnivore diet. We'll get your calls here in this segment, 844-236-6010. Hang on if you're on hold. We'll get to you in just a moment. From the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine and Mass General Hospital, Massachusetts General Hospital, a promising Alzheimer's pill could stop disease in its tract. Human trials to start soon. New class of drugs. These are called gamma secretase modulators, GSMs. Gamma secretase is a kind of enzyme that's involved in the production of amyloid plaques. You've heard of the famous amyloid plaques that are in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. What you don't know, and what they don't tell you, is amyloid plaques happen all over the body. There's a condition called amyloidosis, where you get amyloid plaques forming in your joints and various soft tissues. Amyloid is a repair mechanism. It's a fiber. And it's true that it shows up in the brains of Alzheimer's patients, but it's not the amyloid. It's why the amyloid's there that is the issue. The amyloid's there because the tissue of the brain is starting to deteriorate, as what happens with the body as we age. Problem is not the Band-Aid. The problem is the wound. But we see the Band-Aid, so we think, oh, we're just going to stop the Band-Aid from forming, and thus the drug, promising Alzheimer's pill, that is going to stop Alzheimer's disease in its tracks. That's what they tell us. Of course, you'll have to get a drug, you'll have to get a prescription for it, and you have to go to the doctor for it, blah, 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 blah. I have an idea. How about if we use essential fatty acids? How about if we stop eating processed foods, especially sugar? Alzheimer's disease is known to be type 3 diabetes. And the link between dysglycemia, messed up blood sugar, and Alzheimer's disease is incontrovertible. You can actually watch what happens when an Alzheimer's patient drinks orange juice or apple juice. You can almost, within seconds, you can start to see their behavior start to change. Along the same lines, how exercise, this is from dnyuz.com. I'm not even sure what that stands for. Dnyuz.com. How exercise enhances aging brains. Number one, exercise improves blood glucose levels. When you work out, the sugar goes from your blood into your muscles. Number two, exercise improves something called brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF. We're going to talk to Jill Hewlett tomorrow about BDNF in her books. Brain-derived neurotropic factor is a chemical, a protein, that stimulates the connections between nerves, the synapses, improves synaptic connections in the brain. It also improves blood function in the brain. So how about we work out a little bit? How about as we get older, we move our bodies? The biggest problem that we have as we get older is we don't move as much. So our bodies have a use it or lose it kind of perspective on things. If you don't use it, you lose it. And we start to deteriorate. Inflammatory factors start to accumulate. Lymphatic drainage starts to become compromised. And remember, you have a lymphatic system in your brain. And all of these lead to cognitive memory issues, as well as the delusions and hallucinations that if it really tumbles out of control, that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. Everybody needs to exercise, of course, but especially as we get older. Even stretching. Even if you don't want to go out and do an all-out workout, just stretching. Or a brisk walk around the block, or walking up and down stairs. Stairs are great. If you have stairs at home, walk up and down them. Just do a workout. Do 3 or 4 flights of stairs, or 3 or 4. Walk up your stairs and down, up and down, maybe 3 or 4 times. It's an awesome workout for your glutes, for your thighs, hammies, quads, as well as improving circulation, improving heart health and brain health. All right, 844-236-6010 is our number. Let's go to Leo in Pennsylvania and say good morning. What's up, Leo? How you doing?
Yeah, good morning, Ben. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Before my question, I would like to know what the doctor coming up about the ATPs. The mammals, like the cow and the pig, have accelerated ATPs, adenosine triphosphates, and there's a lot of proven studies show that when we get them in our body, it has an unnatural endocrine response. So,
hang on. Let me understand that real quick. You're saying there's more that they make animals have more ATP in them than plants, and when we eat the ATP, there's harmful effects. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes. Look at how fast the little babies grow from the cows and the pigs compared to the humans, and their ATPs is much more accelerated than our ATPs in our body.
I don't know what you mean by accelerated. ATP is a chemical. You mean production is accelerated? They're making more ATP?
Well, yes. It's just what I gather. It's just in a different type of form, and then when it gets in ours, it triggers our unnatural ATP response in our body.
I don't know that it seems like ATP would be broken down in the digestive system, and we wouldn't really. By the time you eat a hamburger or a piece of meat, you're not getting any ATP from the animal. It's all broken down. But I will definitely mention it to him. I'm sure. Is that what you want? Yeah.
Yes, and also I have a question about the Adele's new diet, the cert food diet, the sirtuins.
Dr. Dean Adele?
Dr.
Dean Adele. He's got almost so much of what Dr. Dean Adele says is problematic. I stopped paying attention to him decades ago.
No, we're talking about the singer Adele.
Oh, the singer Adele. I thought you meant Dr. Dean Adele. Okay, I stopped paying attention to this. There used to be. I haven't heard from him for a while, but he used to be on the radio. This guy, Dr. Dean Adele, and I stopped paying attention to him. He was kind of a spokesperson for the mainstream medical model. But you mean the singer Adele? What did she do exactly to lose weight?
Well, this is about the sirtuins in the body. The cert diet. It's like in the forefront of attention right now.
Got it. The cert food diet. Yeah, the
cert food diet. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then while I have you online here, could you possibly expound on some of these companies are making high levels of potassium citrate and carbonate, and across the board, most of them are just 99 milligrams. Now, if somebody's kidneys are functioning correctly, Ben, could taking high levels be problematic?
I don't know potassium is relatively benign, but not totally, and you don't want to overdose on potassium. It could throw everything off, throw off kidney health, throw off electrolyte balance. Potassium is held in balance with sodium and to a certain extent calcium and magnesium as well. So you don't want to overdo one electrolyte. The best way to get your electrolytes, in my humble opinion, is an electrolyte in forms where the electrolytes are balanced. Celtic sea salt, Himalayan salt, and of course vegetables. And vegetable juices are an amazing source of potassium, but you'll also get other balancing electrolytes. So I'm not a big believer in just taking one electrolyte, like potassium, for example. And in the world of pharmacy, there are potassium pills, K-Lor, and potassium powders, K-Lor, Micro K, and such. And doctors will give you those if they think that you're out of balance. But whenever you start playing with one electrolyte at the expense of others, you run the risk of throwing things off, and I'm not a big believer in those. And yes, you can. If your kidneys are operating well, are functioning well, healthfully, that shouldn't be a problem. But many people don't have well-functioning kidneys, and it can be an issue if you take just one electrolyte as a pill, like a potassium pill. So I'm not sure I would be messing around that way. If you're shy of potassium, use vegetables and vegetable juices. That's probably the best way to get your potassium, and then you'll make sure that you're getting all your electrolytes in balance. Hope that helps you, Leo. And I'm gonna look into I'm gonna talk a little bit about the CERT diet tomorrow. That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of that, but that's an interesting topic. Thanks for your call. Appreciate it. And I'm sorry if we left you on hold. We've got Dr. Sean Baker coming up in our next segment. We're going to discuss the carnivore diet. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back right after this. Side. I am Pharmacist Ben, and we're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive pages at benfuchsarchives.com and brightsideben.com. We've got search engines and all kinds of health topics and videos and interviews on our websites, brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com, as well as the longevity products, and a Join the Team link that you can click on if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products, all formulated by me in my compounding pharmacy for healing wounds and helping folks deal with eczema and psoriasis and acne, as well as cosmetic issues like hyperpigmentation and aging, thinning skin. All our Truth Skin Health products are formulated without preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, water, silicone, vegetable oil, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want, just 100% active and functional ingredients. Thus our 1,600 plus 4- and 5-star reviews, which you can find at truthreviewed.com. Truthreviewed.com for our reviews, and truthtreatments.com for all our Truth Skin Health products. All right, I am super excited to talk to our guest today. Dr. Sean Baker is a surgeon. He's a military vet. He's also a very well-known public speaker. His book is The Carnivore Diet, which I have been reading and looking at and studying now for a couple of years. Dr. Baker, as the name implies, supports an all-carnivore diet, and I have a lot of questions. I've had many questions. I'm so excited to talk to Dr. Baker. Thank you, Rob, for setting this up, and thank you, Dr. Sean Baker, for being on the bright side. Good morning.
Yeah, hey, good morning, Ben. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a total pleasure. It's an honor to speak to you. Thank you for your book. And I just have so many questions. I'm just going to start off at the beginning because I want to, hopefully I can get to all of these things. First of all, I'm not pro or con meat or vegan or vegetarian. I think human beings are omnivores. We're designed to eat everything. Nonetheless, when you talk about eating all carnivore, eating all meat, it seems to me like you're going to be missing out on some stuff. Number one, what do you say about vitamin C?
Well, I mean, vitamin C, they've known for 100-plus years that access to fresh food, including meat, prevents things like scurvy. So, I mean, we basically have already known that. The other sort of...
Hang on. Hang on. Are you saying there's vitamin C in meat?
Yes, I am. Yeah, there's vitamin C in meat. It's been... The USDA hasn't tested it. It assumes to be zero, but there's been several independent labs that have tested it. There's about 10 milligrams per pound of beef, and that's basically enough for the anti-scorbutic properties of vitamin C. A lot of different organs obviously have vitamin C as well, particularly things like sweetbreads, which would be like thymus, the pancreas, and the liver has it too. But there is some in basically the steak, so you get enough. You know that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, because you keep saying something. I want to just clarify here a little bit. I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize for that. So you're saying 10 milligrams a pound. That's like a pinch. That's not even less than a pinch, 10 milligrams. You'd have to eat 10 pounds of meat to get 100 milligrams. You know, animals, when they make vitamin C, are making grams of it. Human beings don't make vitamin C, as you know, but animals, when they're making vitamin C, are making 15 grams of it, especially when they're under stress. How are you saying that all you need is 10 milligrams a day? And when you talk about anti-scorbutic properties, that doesn't include the immune system. That doesn't include the antioxidant properties of vitamin C. That doesn't include the skin health benefits of vitamin C. So perhaps you don't get scurvy, but is that enough? Do you really believe that that's enough? Not having scurvy is enough of a reason to, or is the bar being set a little bit low? Isn't scurvy, that's not really what you're talking about when you're talking about the benefits of vitamin C. There's so much more to vitamin C.
So if we look at the way humans handle vitamin C, vitamin C is competitively inhibited with its uptake through transporters like glucose. So if you're in a low glucose environment, you absorb more vitamin C. So, if we're looking at, the RDA for vitamin C, some people put it about 60 milligrams per day. Eating a carb-based diet is going to inhibit your absorption, so you're less efficient at absorbing it. So that artificially elevates your requirements. We also know that human red blood cells can recycle vitamin C. We also know that vitamin C is an antioxidant, but when you're in a low-carbohydrate state, your endogenous antioxidant systems are upregulated. You express more levels of glutathione. You express more uric acid, which many people don't realize is an antioxidant. Also, we know that carnitine is one of the major roles of vitamin C with regard to fat oxidation. So you need vitamin C to help with carnitine function. However, when you're on a meat-based diet, you're consuming lots of carnitine. So your requirements are going down. Now, the arguments about, well, what about this skin health and all the different things. We're just not seeing any of those issues cropping up. Skin health, people's skin gets very, very good on a carnivore diet. So, you can have the theoretical thoughts on this, and you can put it in the context of a standard American diet or a Western diet and say that may hold true in that situation. However, the evidence is based on people doing this diet, and I've seen now tens of thousands of people do it consistently. They do not get any of those issues. In fact, basically the opposite happens. Your skin health improves, your gut health improves, your immune system improves, on and on and on. And so it may be that if you're eating a standard American diet, you need to get your 100 grams or 60 grams. If you're not eating that diet, likely the requirements change. We've seen that with zinc requirements. Just as another example, even the USDA recognizes now that if you're eating a diet that's high in phytic acid, which you get from grains and beans and things like legumes and things like that, your zinc requirements either double or triple depending upon your consumption of phytic acid. So we have similar analogous situations.
Okay, so I see what that's zinc. I don't want to get off too much on a tangent. I understand you're making an analogy there. But as far as vitamin C goes, just to sum up, you don't believe that you need as much vitamin C, and then in combination with that, the fact that you're on a low carb, when you're doing carnivore, you're not getting the carbs that interfere with vitamin C. Both of those factors, the fact that you don't need as much vitamin C, you don't believe you need as much vitamin C, and your vitamin C efficiency, if you will, is higher when you're not eating carbs. You think that takes care of the vitamin C issue. Did I sum that up okay?
That appears to answer the question as to why no one is suffering from vitamin C. In fact, we've seen a lot of people who have tested their vitamin C levels on a carnivore diet, and they generally are in with normal ranges. So regardless, we're able to maintain that to a normal level.
Okay, so that's vitamin C. How about polyphenols? How about the flavonoids and such that are found abundantly in plants? How are you? Is that the same idea as vitamin C? You don't feel those are as necessary as people think?
Well, they're not essential nutrients. We
don't know they're essential. We don't know that they're essential.
We know what is essential. We know amino acids, essential fats. We know that. Certain vitamins and minerals, but the plant phytochemicals have not been shown to be essential at all. They might be conditionally beneficial. The other thing is, animals, ruminant animals consume tremendous amounts of these products, and they do bioaccumulate them in their tissues.
Okay.
So
you
are exposed to some level of polyphenols when you eat animals. That's shown as well.
Okay. How about heterocyclic amines in cooked meats?
Yeah, so again, let's talk about, there's data that shows that, high levels of HCAs or aromatic hydrocarbons, that also have the same thing. These are these nitroso compounds. When you cook meat at a high heat, these things are detoxified by certain pathways, in the liver and other systems that basically deal with that. The one thing you hear often.
Sean, we got to take a break. I want you to hold on to that thought. Okay. But just to sum up, you're saying that the heterocyclic amines can be handled by the body. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's basically a hormetic stressor, just like sulforaphane is. It's handled in the same pathway, exactly the same exact pathway.
All right. We got to take a break. We'll continue when we come back. Dr. Sean Baker's with us. His book is The Carnivore Diet. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. Okay, we are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Dr. Sean Baker, physician, surgeon, athlete, and also spokesperson for the Carnivore Diet, the title of his book. Dr. Baker, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you there. Just to sum up real quickly, vitamin C, not as important as people think, and the fact that the body is not subject to carbohydrate abuse, if you will, makes it more efficient at handling vitamin C. Polyphenols, they're not essential. You can get some in meat. Before we went to break, you were talking about, you were addressing the heterocyclic amine. For the listeners, HCAs are associated with various forms of cancer, including intestinal cancers, and they're found in cooked meats, burnt meats, if you will. So continue talking about how you address this whole HCA issue.
Yeah. So, I mean, the data on the heterocyclic amines and the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, it's basically high-dose, high-concentration studies done in animals, but they don't really have good human data that supports that. We also know the detoxification pathways that detoxify those compounds are the same ones that detoxify compounds like sulforaphane, which is found in things like broccoli sprouts, which everybody lauds as a great, tremendous thing because they create a hormetic stress, which is the same thing these HCAs likely are doing. And so we don't have actual direct linkage showing HCAs causing any human disease. It's just, again, mechanistic data, rat studies, so on and so forth. And that honestly doesn't really prove anything.
So you're thinking that there's actually a hormesis effect from the HCAs, much like with these phytonutrients.
It's the same exact detoxification pathway. So if you're going to attribute hormesis to these plant compounds, then you've got to basically show it uses the same exact mechanism.
Okay, so for the listeners, hormesis refers to the fact that things that should be toxic actually have a upregulate detoxification pathways and have a beneficial effect. So you're saying there's actually a hormesis that's involved with HCA similar to sulforaphanes and phytonutrients that are found in cruciferous vegetables and such.
They use the same pathways, the same exact detoxification pathway. Okay. So if you're going to claim one, then you've got to concede the other. Okay,
fair enough. Okay, now there's more. And thank you for taking the time, being so gracious. I really appreciate it. How about the idea that meat today is not the same meat that human beings grew up with, paleolithically speaking? In other words, meat are fed grains that they don't usually eat. Cows, I should say, are fed grains that they don't usually eat. Fish are fed grains that they don't usually eat. Hormones, antibiotics, and such.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I can see that is certainly true, although meat is more closely represented to what it was 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, than much of the rest of our diet, our plant-based diet. If we look at the sort of hybridization of vegetables, we look at the introduction of completely novel compounds, seed oils, artificial sweeteners, colors, high fructose corn syrup. It's far closer to a native diet than any other food out there, quite honestly.
And so it doesn't trouble you that the vast majority of the meat supply is contaminated with hormones and antibiotics and other chemicals probably, and fed grain?
I like it. Certainly I think there's a better way to do that. If we look at the overall effect on people, there's no real human data on that as to, eating one type of meat versus the other. In fact, Harvard University has just done a study on this topic. The outcomes in the human population so far shows no difference in the outcome. So, I think from an environmental standpoint, you can make a great argument, and I certainly do that all the time for regeneratively raised meat, but the health argument has not been shown to have much to it, quite honestly.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to fiber. Okay, now I've listened to you. I've read your book, and I've listened to you on YouTube as well as other carnivore proponents. And whenever I hear you talking about fiber, I hear you referring to the fact that fiber is associated with better bowel movements, basically. And there was a guy on with you. You didn't say this, but this gentleman who was on with you, I think his name is Palladino, talked about. He was very dismissive of the Burkett work, Dennis Burkett's work. For the listeners, Dennis Burkett I think he was a physician, and he went out to various indigenous cultures and noticed that they had better bowel movements when they ate more fiber. And Dr. Palladino and you as well were very dismissive of this idea that there's a relationship or an important relationship between fiber and bowel movements. But I did not hear you address the prebiotic role of fiber. That is, the relationship between a good microbiome and fiber, as well as short-chain fatty acids that come from fiber, and the importance of short-chain fatty acids. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure, yeah. So if you're talking, Dennis Burkett was, famously described something called Burkitt's lymphoma. I'm very familiar with his work. He made the observation that Africans seem to suffer from less health-related chronic diseases than people in the native England where he was from. He attributed it to fiber, but he forgot to say that they don't eat sugar and processed food and all those types of things. So clearly he was, he wasn't looking at the whole picture. Fiber certainly allows for you to have more bowel movements, allows you to have a greater size bowel movements, but there's no real evidence to support that is actually healthier for us. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary. Dr. Ann Perry did a study like in 2014 looking at bowel movements, bowel frequency, and the amount of fiber, and compared it to the prevalence of diverticulosis. She saw the people that had the most fiber, had the most bowel movements, had the highest rate of diverticulosis, which is indicative of poor bowel health.
How about I'm sorry to interrupt real quickly. How about the detoxification role of big bowel movements? Elimination of old hormones, elimination of cholesterol and such, elimination of other toxins. Wouldn't that imply better bowel movements, bigger stools? Wouldn't that imply better detoxification?
Not necessarily. I mean, you're just having a bigger bowel movement because you can't digest it, so you're pushing it. So you still have bowel movements without fiber. There's people that fast for weeks and weeks that have bowel movements, and so they're still, quote unquote, using that effect. I mean, you're sloughing off your intestinal mucosal cells, the microbiome. That's the greatest percentage of the bowel movement. So you don't lose your capacity to eliminate waste because you don't have fiber in the diet. Your question about the short-chain fatty acids, certainly we know that fiber, there's bacteria that can convert some of the fiber into short-chain fatty acids. People typically concentrate on butyrate, but we know that protein, amino acids can be converted into short-chain fatty acids, methylbutyrate, propionate, acetate. These all things likely have beneficial effects. But just as importantly, when you go on a low-carbohydrate diet or a carnivore diet, you tend to produce things called ketone bodies, and one of the most prevalent one that we've seen in the blood system is something called beta-hydroxybutyrate, which sounds just like butyrate. The only difference is a small hydroxyl radical, which is a hydrogen and oxygen molecule. And we know that's an interchangeable reaction. Beta-hydroxybutyrate can convert to butyrate and back and forth and vice versa. And the question is perhaps the butyrate that's being elicited by the short-chain, by the microbiome, ultimately converts to beta-hydroxybutyrate, and that is the potentially beneficial effect. You can also get butyrate, through animal products, things like butter. Butter's high on butyrate, butyric acid. So
you have to eat a lot of butter, though. You'd have to eat a lot of butter.
I think you just, as long as you're producing ketones, you're covered with that. And again, the presumption is butyrate, short-chain fatty acids, is leading to better bowel health and better,
No, but also mental health. All butyrates are also involved in mental health. They're involved in cardiovascular health.
Yeah, you've got all these things. What happens to people when they go on a carnivore diet? Their gut function improves dramatically. Their mental health improves dramatically. But
is that a function of carnivore? Is that a function of the meat, or is that a function of, as you implied with Dr. Burkett's work, is that a function of just a less processed food?
It's probably a function of both. I mean, clearly meat is an essential part of the human diet. Every human that's ever walked the planet is using meat. I mean, it's why we evolved. I mean, it's why we're still not in the trees eating fruits and leaves. I mean, the reason we're a different primate is because we switched dietary patterns. Meat has been essential to our evolution ever since. Now we have processed foods, and we can concentrate our energy so we can meet the energy demands of the human brain now through highly refined grains and sugars and these concentrated fats. But that's not how humans evolved. That's not what we're designed to do.
Well, that leads me to my last question. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the program. We're running out of time here. But that leads me to my last question, and that is the idea that human beings are omnivores. And yes, it's true. We were designed to eat meat, and our bodies and our intestines and our jaws and our teeth, they're structured so that we can enjoy and get the benefits from meat. But we're also supposed to be eating vegetables. We're also supposed to be getting nutrients from plants. So does the carnivore diet deprive us of anything, considering that we're omnivores?
So I don't disagree with our omnivores. We're opportunistic omnivores. We eat whatever is in front of us. If ancient man had access to Twinkies and ice cream, he would have eaten Twinkies and ice cream. I have no doubt about it. The capacity to have omnivory does not necessarily mean that's optimal for us. I think we're probably more better aligned to something called a facultative carnivore, which means we thrive on meat, but we do have the capacity to eat plants, derive energy from there in the event that we don't have access to meat. And I think that's the difference. And that's one of the reasons we were able to be successful, is that we did maintain this capacity. If we look at the hardware, our actual anatomy, and we look at what we have from say, a fermentation capacity, because this is what we're doing with this is where we're getting a lot of our energy from plants, is through fermenting that fiber, is we have about a 17% of our gut is dedicated to fermentation. A chimpanzee or a gorilla has about 60% of their gut. A cat has about 16% of its gut relative to fermentation, which is very similar to humans. Now, cats can actually eat a lot of sugar. They can actually eat grain, as many modern cats.
Dr. Baker, I'd love to hear you talk more. We're out of time. I hope we get you back on and we can finish it up. I apologize. We're just running out of time. Thanks, Dr. Baker, for the book, The Carnivore Diet. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Have a wonderful, beautiful day. We'll talk to y'all later, folks. Bye for now.